Okay, so I have requirements of people who come here. Uh, let's go through during this pandemic thing the categories of people there currently are. There are people who um, have not been inoculated for COVID, vaccinated, whatever, and there's people within that of people have had different ones, and it's been a certain amount of time since their last one, so they may or may not be vulnerable. The newest information appears to be that people can get COVID again. Also, it's mutating. So, uh, people who really don't want to get it, um, okay, here's the deal. Other group of people is people who just haven't been inoculated yet. They're in Mexico. There's less and less of them. People here aren't as whiny about that as Americans or gringos. So I think locally I'll have more people who are vaccinated available. And of course, any traveler from the States has to be vaccinated. I think I will also accept a positive test for antibodies. That means you've already gotten it. That was your vaccine, the real disease. And that's probably the best vaccine there is, at least until it mutates more. So I would accept that as well. Will I take people here who are not vaccinated and don't ever wish to get vaccinated? Well, my greatest fear is that they're going to get sick. And those are the worst people to be going out right now and traveling. So they definitely should not leave the site. Should anyone else leave the site? I believe that right now, in the current situation of the Bosque, that the default should be we make enough activities here and enough interesting projects, and this is my dream anyway, is to focus on this place. Agricultural projects, projects with animals, cultural projects. It's all over the map. Science projects, fermentation, food projects. We should have a lot of exciting things going on here. And that this is not the best time for most kinds of travel. Now, I'm gonna go ahead and disagree with myself here. There are cases where it could be done well. And that is people traveling in a private vehicle, taking various sizes of spray bottles. This is my biggest one. It's huge. It sprays alcohol. Jesus, it makes a big mess. The sprayer needs to be adjusted, I think. And they're doing very high quality things. In other words, they're not just driving around to go see somebody. I think travel, the way we travel, should be improved. And I'll talk about that. I'll try and remember that for my next topic. Travel during COVID. So you need one of those two things, either vaccination proof and probably within the last year, if it's true that people can keep getting it. And mainly, I think the biggest thing here is a focus on this place. I believe that all trips off property should be approved. And I did that early on in the pandemic with some folks. I don't know if they were careful as much as I would like. I know that they touched children at some point. They did pretty good. And I think what I need to do is make a list of where the destinations I think are safest, like focus on hiking, focus on anything as local as possible. And this is an opportunity then to do local tourism development. So I think farther away trips should really only be made if they're supply runs of some kind. And ideally, we would get most things delivered. Now, the more paranoid someone is, the better. I don't like the people who say, oh, don't worry about COVID, okay? Because I know people who have died, and I don't want anyone dying here. If someone gets COVID while they're here, whose problem does it become? Mine, because they're here. And some of them don't speak Spanish, or they don't have resources, or they're dumbasses. And so I want this place to be locked down like it's a pandemic emergency. I have the opportunity to do it. I've got a beautiful space to do it in. I mean, this is a great place to escape the pandemic to. But then here you're agreeing to a culture, and part of that culture is don't leave the property. I think I'm going to have to say it that way. And so as I think about different groups of people, if you want to be totally free, that's fine. maybe you should go to town. Maybe on the other side of the Bronca, I mean, this is what I'm waffling about, right? Is I could set up some separated camps, right, where people can socially distance a little bit, and they're in their own group, but they're all people who believe that COVID is bullshit. And maybe they can go to town. You know, there's a road over there. I can make camping spots in other spots where it's easy to drive in and out. But those people are not, they're even distance further from them. They're our riskiest people. And, you know, I know there's reasons not to get vaccinated. And what I'm trying to do is avoid saying you have to get vaccinated to come here. I mean, maybe some of these places you don't even have to have a positive PCR test. And that's the most risky group, especially if they want to travel. But I hate to say no to people, and I have a rebellious nature myself. I don't believe everything I've heard about COVID, especially since I've heard a lot of contradictory things, you know. But in this case, during this pandemic, the default is to survivalism. So don't get in my face. Come with friends, or I'll put you in a camp where you have friends. But you are all agreeing to a certain policy, set of policies, and I'll make a template for this. I'll make a spreadsheet, right, with each rule, and then who it applies to, and a discussion of it, a link to the longer policy, a written policy, and videos, and then we can actually function even as people who don't agree about COVID, because some people are really into their fucking opinion. I like to avoid most of those people too. If you're big on one side of COVID or the other, or it upsets you and you have upsetting conversations about it, I don't want to meet you no matter what category you fit into. I'm just not interested. I'm not interested in what most of it is pseudoscience, pseudo-spirituality, bullshit. And of course, I'm sharing my theories with you. That's fine. I'm doing it on video. You can turn me off anytime you want. You start turned off with me. And so you are guilty of being the kind of person that destroys the planet until proven otherwise. That's how grumpy I am. That's why I'm a hermit. It's excellent. So, but then I, if you're not a person who gets all uppity about it, for whatever viewpoint you come from, then I want to accommodate you in this beautiful space. I believe that this in particular is a great time to get the heck out of the city, because this disease is going to bounce around for a while it's mutating. And I think it's better not to get it a lot of times. Every time you get it, it damages your body. That's my impression. And so even getting a lot of mild cases of it, I predict that in the future, they will say getting lots of mild cases of it hurts you, which means we should socially distance and continue to do it, even if the punishment of sickness isn't that bad. Even if we're totally immune to it, we don't want to be getting it and potentially passing it to other people. And so even people who never get sick with it, they've got antibodies, they've never had a goddamn symptom, those people are dangerous people because they don't even know they're sick. So that's it. Part of this new social contract for Bosque Village is, first of all, disclose your exact status, have documentation for it. The likelihood I'll accept somebody without even a PCR test now that they're cheap and easy and available, they're even in Aronga. I could have hermit huts or car camping here where the agreement is, and I might do this to people who can't provide any kind of trustworthy anything, which is suspicious in and of itself, right? Because I'm trying to create a social setting that is protected. And so, would I accept those people? Yeah, they got to be fully quarantined, though. I want them to be camped in a spot that says sickness area. I'll make a leper colony. I'll make a COVID colony. Hey, that's a great, alliteration and stuff. A COVID colony. I could make one on the south side and the north side. And it's really just a series of campsites, preferably car camping sites, which are for people whose status is unknown, and they have to stay in their colony. They can't even leave that area. And I mean, I could do the whole far side as that. That's a bunch of acres, 25 acres or something. I can fit a few campsites in there. And I can, make sure people are comfortable and they can buy garrafones of water. Um, and I don't know, though, inviting my most risky people, I don't know that I would want those people in particular to be traveling around a lot because they could be spreading the disease. And I don't want to host disease vectors. And, I don't think the science is settled on all kinds of things. The CDC and various government agencies have changed their opinion many times. I haven't changed my opinion very much at all. And everything I've said is coming true. There's the other aspect. The economic effects of this are really difficult. And there's likely to be high inflation soon. Um, and so there could be serious disruptions in the supply chain. And I think this changes things here where I need to grow more food in a more serious way. Currently, I grow food as a series of experiments, and then I let it go to seed often. I do this, I do that. Um, and I'm learning to use the local native plants better and better. But I should get really serious about that now and do things like, for example, um, gather pine needles and dry them. Don't pick up once they're on the ground because a lot of rain has already gone through them. I mean, don't pick up dried ones on the ground. But get nice fresh pine needles, and I have pine trees to harvest them off of. There's no shortage. I have an infinite number. And then have a tea system where we make large pots of that, kind of like you would make coffee. Uh, in fact, we could use solar coffee makers or wood-fired ones, but have a strainer through which the pine needles do not get. Okay, so we're drying a bunch of them. We're putting them into bins. We've got them just there. There are just tons of them. I don't know if the ends are on them or not. And we could try cedar tea as well. We'd have to read about that first. But I've got 4 kinds of cedar here. We did a taste test once. We could do it again if we want, but it's almost pointless. Uh, and we could have a strainer then. You fill a big pot with water and you heat it up, or you pour. Better than that is from an existing solar hot water heater. You fill it with hot water. That's the faster way to make stuff. Start with hot water, and that should be solar heated hot water. Duh. We should do it with everything, actually. It speeds up cooking, unless it hurts the food. In this case, it'd be fine. Because we dried the pine, the water will get into the pine needle better. So I believe dried is a better product than fresh. Also, dried, we can put it in bins and bags and things like that. I love the idea of pretty big bins for it, right? Like, I don't know, it should be something that a cook could pick up and put on a shelf, but is almost too heavy to, you got to heft it. Because I don't want to collect these all the time, right? And so I want there to be a year's supply of pine needles collected every year. That's what I want for food storage type things. So you hear what I said? And this is true for other things as well. We always want to have at least a year of all the goods we need for the next year. And we're always using the stuff before it gets old. If there's exceptions to that, we need to write them up and we'll find supply chain things for that. Obviously, there's fruits and veggies we can't grow here, but we want to have. So one of the responses culturally to COVID is that we're going to get way more serious about growing food here. I've got food I don't like to grow, I've got food I don't like to eat that grows really well here, like Malabar gourds, also known as, I forgot their name. Nobody likes them. They're free. But we can also grow things as animal food. I mean, if we were raising rabbits again, that's very high quality thing. And don't talk to me about rabbit starvation unless you read about it. It's only a problem under survival conditions. Rabbits are excellent food. They're the ideal way to produce meat. The other way to produce animal proteins is chickens. So those systems need to be maximized immediately. And also, we've got more and more underbrush growing. And so, if we make it really easy to have lightweight wheelbarrows and really good paths, we can have a ramp that goes up to the chicken coop, probably through a small building so we can keep wildlife out of it. But we can open two doors on the building, and they're big, wide doors, right? And we can just have wheelbarrow full loads of green cut stuff that was cut with a weed whacker or a machete, or it's a stick that rots quickly. Generally, things that rot quickly that are growing over in places we don't want them, and nothing poisonous. In fact, there's two plants I want to get off the property. And these are activities we can do during COVID. So one of our sculpting activities can be gardening. Food forest gardening should be like the number one activity here, I think. I really believe that. I can hire people to do it, and I would rather hire them as teachers. And so that when people come here, they learn about how in this place we make certain decisions in certain ways. And of course, I need to make videos about every detail about that and give that information away for free. But, I also like to host people. And seeing is different than reading about. And I can mimic seeing on a video. I can do my best. I really try hard. But doing and seeing in person is better. And I think any part of the food forest farming process is something that every person should have available to them while they're here. Of course, some people won't be interested. They're here for another reason. That's just fine. And I don't say I want to push this on people, but I want to have it super available. I want people to learn to recognize every kind of tree here, every important kind of tree. There's one I don't know the scientific name of. I need to get a tree expert over here to tell me. But I want them all to learn about tree sculpting, about energy conservation. I want them to eat food that is made the way food should be made. Grow it, get it locally, preserve it, ferment it, cook it at the right time using the right energy, store it in a root cellar, buy it from a neighbor, buy it from a nearby town. Any food coming from far away is suspect. I should also have a list of. I should improve my list of things to bring or not. So we'll talk about that too. On COVID, let me try and wrap it up. I think we've covered it. It's a weird situation, and we'll see what happens.